Picture your 7th birthday right now. Don't think too hard. Just let the image form. For most people, a scene loads immediately. Flickering candles, wrapping paper, the face of the kid sitting next to you. But for you? Nothing. Just a blank wall. You know the facts, though. There was a cake. It was at a bowling alley. You remember that much. But there's no movie playing in your head. You try to force it. Try to rewind the tape. Make something appear. The screen stays black, and you sit there wondering why your own history feels like a book with half the pages torn out. You're not just bad at remembering. You're experiencing something specific, something named. Take Blake Ross. You probably used his software every single day. He's the co-creator of Firefox, the guy who literally built the browser half the planet uses to navigate the internet right now. Highly creative, fiercely intelligent, a literal architect of the digital age. But a few years ago, Blake wrote something public, an essay that broke the internet's understanding of memory. He revealed a secret he'd kept his entire life. When people told him to picture an apple, they weren't using a metaphor. He had never seen a single mental image in his entire life. Not an apple, not his childhood bedroom, not his own past. He had aphantasia. The mind's eye was completely, utterly dark. But here's what matters for you. Blake didn't just lack visual imagination. He lacked episodic memory, couldn't mentally time travel, had to read his own life story like a dry textbook instead of watching it like a film. When he tried to recall a specific memory, he didn't get a scene. He got a list of facts. Sound familiar? Blake thought he was broken, thought his brain was fundamentally defective, watched other people describe their childhoods in vivid cinematic detail, and felt like an imposter in his own life. Spent decades thinking he was the only one experiencing this profound internal silence. Thought his lack of visual memory meant he lacked creativity, or depth, or emotional connection. His career building, Firefox disproved all of that. He just processed reality conceptually, not visually. Realized his entire framework for understanding his own mind was based on a false assumption. The moment he figured out that picture an apple wasn't a figure of speech. Massive paradigm shift. It wasn't a failure of effort. It was a fundamental difference in hardware. He finally had a name for the void. But he wasn't broken, just wired differently. And he wasn't alone. If your brain isn't broken or traumatized, why did it build your memory this way? For decades, psychology assumed that if you couldn't remember your past, you were either repressing it or just had a bad memory. Then in 2015, a landmark study dropped. Dr. Brian Levine at the Baycrest Centre in Toronto published in Neuropsychologia. He wasn't looking at trauma patients. He was looking at perfectly healthy, high-functioning adults who came into his lab complaining of the exact same blank wall you just described. Levine realized these participants weren't just struggling to retrieve memories. They literally lacked the brain's play button for the past. He named it severely deficient autobiographical memory, SDAM. Turns out up to 3% of the population experiences the world without a visual mind's eye or the ability to mentally time travel. Look at 30 people in a room. Statistically, one of them is living their entire life without a mental movie. It's not a superpower. It's certainly not a disability. It's just a normal statistical variation. Levine's research proved these individuals have normal intelligence, normal semantic memory, normal spatial navigation. The only thing missing is first-person mental time travel. The hardware is fine. The playback mechanism is just different. Your brain didn't fail to record the video. It just never installed the software to play it back. You aren't losing your memories. They just aren't being formatted as scenes in the first place. We treat memory like a video file. Just press play and watch it degrade. But your brain isn't a VCR. It's a live editor. Every time you remember something, You aren't pulling up a file, you're rewriting it in real time, right now, whether you want to or not. The archive model? It's a myth. Your brain doesn't care about preserving the past. It only cares about making sense of who you are now. Conway called this the self-memory system, the mechanism that keeps you coherent even when your past keeps changing. When you lack episodic memory, your identity isn't built on a visual timeline of who I was. It's built on something simpler, a conceptual understanding of who I am. This is why you can completely reinvent yourself without feeling like you're betraying your past. You aren't chained to a visual ghost. But how does that archive get built in the first place? Autobiographical memory isn't a mature brain function that just turns on. It's actively built during childhood through social interaction. When a parent asks, "What did we see at the zoo? What was the monkey doing?" they're building scenes, scaffolding the episodic memory. When they just say, "We went to the zoo," they're building facts. Without that specific social scaffolding, the brain defaults to storing facts, not scenes. Now, here's where we need to clear up a massive, dangerous myth. Pop psychology loves to tell you that if you can't remember your childhood, it's because your brain deleted it to protect you from trauma. That is scientifically false for SDAM. Your brain didn't erase your past to save you. You aren't carrying some dark, repressed secret. Your episodic encoding is simply deficient. It's a congenital neurological variation, not a trauma response. The validation here isn't that you were saved from something. The validation is that you are simply wired differently. Think of it like this. Normal autobiographical memory is a continuous painted mural. You can step back and see the whole landscape of your childhood in one glance. But your memory? It's a mosaic. Distinct, highly detailed, tiles of facts, concepts, and feelings. You don't have the continuous painted background, but the individual tiles are incredibly sharp. You have a fully intact emotional and semantic record of your past, even if the visual projector is turned off. You didn't lose your childhood. You just store it in a different format. This mosaic wiring shows up everywhere, usually in ways that make you feel slightly alienated. It's navigating a familiar room using spatial knowing rather than visual remembering. You just know where the couch is, but you can't picture it when you're not there. It's understanding the deep emotional truth of a past era of your life, knowing exactly what your college years felt like without being able to name a single specific Tuesday from that semester. And it's that quiet social friction of nodding along when friends trade vivid remember when stories. They're swapping postcards from a trip you never took. You smile, you laugh, but internally, you're just staring at that blank wall again, wondering if you'll ever catch up. You don't need to catch up. It's also why you can read a room in seconds. You aren't relying on visual cues from the past. You're processing the raw semantic data of the present moment. But look back at that 7th birthday at the bowling alley. You don't need the visual of the flickering candles to know it was a good day. The facts and the feelings are enough. The tiles of the mosaic are right there. You don't need the mural to prove the picture exists. Without a heavy archive of visual memories pulling you backward, your attention naturally defaults to the present. It's not a mindfulness practice. It's just the default setting of your specific wiring. You aren't trapped in the past because your brain never built the cage. If your past isn't a continuous movie you can simply watch, but rather a complex mosaic you can deeply understand, what does the specific shape of your mosaic actually tell you about who you are right now? You've spent years thinking the blank spaces in your head meant something was fundamentally missing. They aren't missing. They're just formatted entirely differently. You don't need to fix the hard drive. You don't need to recover the video. The mosaic isn't a broken version of the mural. It's just a different format, and you've been reading it fluently your entire life. You just didn't know that's what you were doing. If you want more unfiltered truths about how the human mind actually works, hit subscribe. We sit with the parts of the mind that no one else will slow down and explain. Drop a comment below and tell me, what is one fact about your childhood that you know is absolutely true, even if you can't picture it? I read every single one. I'll see you in the next one.